Dear and respected friend, thank you so much for your kind participation in today's Society for Communal Harmony dialogue on the very topic, understanding or making sense of Manipur crisis 2023. I, Randhir Kumar Gautam, on behalf of Society for Communal Harmony, I welcome respected chair of today's session, Professor Anand Kumar, President of Society for Communal Harmony. Speakers of today's session, Dr.John Dayal, eminent human rights activist, decent Indian journalist. We welcome you, sir. We welcome Professor Ajailiu Niumai, nurturer of Center for the Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusion Policy, University of Hyderabad. We welcome Professor Prasanjit Biswas from Northeastern Hill University, Professor Biswajit, Professor Gyanagului, Maniti Pradhanji, Anil Nauriya ji, MD Chandra Sahab, and all friends co-present here. Today we are going to discuss about a crisis which laid a kind of deep question for integrity of this country. We have seen heavy violence, people killed, churches and houses burned, hundreds injured, and governor pleased to order shoot at sight, different sides, adopting very divisive and partisan language. So today we are on behalf of Society for Communal Harmony. We will understand why this is happening. So for initiating a discussion, I request Professor Prasanjit Biswas, who has recently written a very deep and insightful article in Deccan Herald, to initiate the conversation, and then we'll join.
Yes. Dr. Randhir, it's a kind of an occasion for me to express myself once again, because you have followed up from the write-up that is published today in Deccan Herald. I also feel extremely happy and glad to meet Professor Niumai, as well as John Dayal and Professor Anand and you and other friends who have joined us online. So just to begin the discussion, I want to raise a few issues. One of the issues is that conflicts in India's Northeast have a cash value. Ethnic conflicts, if they can be deepened by adding some more spices to it in terms of creating religious polarization, then the conflict and its lasting memory can help the engineers of the conflict to garner mileages in every sense. And these mileages come in the form of occupying places of power at various levels of the state and institutions. As far as the state of Manipur is concerned, what we have seen is that there is a demand for scheduling as a tribe of the dominant Meitei group. And this demand was sort of accorded a kind of a legal stamp by the single bench Manipur High Court, asking the state government, you can see, state government cannot be asked to schedule someone or not to schedule someone. But the High Court has asked it. And then Chief Justice Chandrachud had pointed out that High Court has no business to pass an order about rescheduling or scheduling a new community as a scheduled tribe or not. So you can see that that there is a source of creating a certain kind of a conflictual situation. Conflictual because there is already a deep sense of mistrust. Mistrust that by amending the provisions of Manipur Land Revenue Act of 1960, especially by removing the original Section 3, which didn't allow that the farmlands can be used for non-agricultural purposes, there could be encroachment in the hill areas of Manipur. Hill areas, interestingly, are not protected, as in case of Meghalaya. Meghalaya hill tribes are protected under 6th schedule, and therefore non-tribals cannot purchase land in the 6th schedule areas. The case is not so in Manipur, except the embargo that was there in the original Section 3 of the 1960 Act that didn't allow farmland to be used for non-agricultural purposes. Now this provision has been withdrawn, and therefore a floodgate had been opened up. And then to complicate the situation, recently Manipur government, between 2017 to 2020, 2022, as late as 2022, they declared certain forest lands as protected and also as a kind of a reserve biosphere. Now, these lands fall within the tribal region where Kuki-Chin tribes are already settled. So therefore, under Forest Rights Acts, these tribes could have been retained there. But by declaring protected land in certain forest regions, the government has created a certain kind of a crisis of the habitat of the Kuki-Chin tribes. Now, this compounded with the demand of the Meitei community to become ST, and then further compounded by raising of the 4 churches in the Imphal city areas, actually gave a sense that a conflict is brewing in the air. And then the Tribal Students' Union called for a protest march, and from that protest march, a sense was created that there could be some attack on the majority community by the tribes who have come out on the streets. And so immediately, on the basis of rumor mongering, on the basis of suspicion, on the basis of historical and cultural factors, a clash started. As I said, that it has a cash value. Apparently, the utilitarian state tries to make certain utility out of such clashes. And one of the utilities that through such clashes, Manipur's intricate intertribal relationship can be little disrupted. And if it is disrupted, then these 3 major blocks who have some kind of a difference of opinion and conflict between Nagas and Meiteis, between Nagas and Kukis, between Meiteis and Kuki-Chin groups, these fragile intertribal, inter-community relationship can be disrupted, can be altered in a manner that some of these communities are weakened, their claims on institutions, their claims on state, their claims on territory, their other rights could be weakened, and the community can perceive that its identity is endangered and is in crisis. So such a crisis is created by the utilitarian state. I would go to the extent of saying that the way the question of Myanmar, the question of arms supply, the question of illegal immigration, targeting a certain group or a community is brought in, that shows that maybe somewhere deep state is also lurking in the whole conflict. Therefore, the scenario of conflict is such now that Manipur will never be same again. Already 10 Kuki MLAs belonging to BJP demanded a separate state. They have expressed their opinion to interlocutor Mr. A.K. Sharma that they can never live again with the Meiteis. Already Nagas are demanding unification of the Naga inhabited territories. So the political crisis now has got multiplied with these clashes. Now, what is the way out? The way out should be, once again, a broad-based negotiation, a broad-based ensuring of the institutional rights, especially bringing back 6th schedule. which I don't know will be opposed stringently. Also, the question of granting autonomy to the Naga inhabited areas. Also, the question of securing the rights of majority Meitei community so that they don't feel endangered in the sphere of employment, in the sphere of other rights, educational and other such rights. All these have to be brought together in order to resolve the matter. I think, Dr. Randhir, I stop here, and these are my initial comments. I will keep listening to it, but I will not come on the video. In case there is a question, I will respond later. So I'm going out, and for now, I express my gratefulness to everyone, and also my regrets that I'm not able to continue on video, but I'll keep listening to it. Okay, Randhir, I think that's a kind of
thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for making us understand about the context of the problems. So I request now our second speaker, Father John Dayal, to help us to understand the problem. So, Father, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me clarify. In the church that I belong to, which is the Roman Catholic Church, only a priest can be called father. But of course, my children call me father. So I accept all terms, Dr. Father, Mr., whatever. And that itself, although I used it as a joke, also helps me tell you how complicated identities can be and how many layers they carry. I speak as an insider of the church, and I speak as somebody who goes to Manipur often, meets cookies, meets Nagas, was once involved in the peace process. I also meet Maitis. I have a Maiti Muslim friend, lots of Hindu Maiti friends. I have a very few Catholic Maitis, very few, but I have a pretty good number of evangelical Maitis, Catholics, non-Catholic Maitis. So I can say, like most of us who are not indigenous to the area, I have a reasonable grasp of it. But what concerns me are three basic things. I will dwell or build on the excellent work that Professor has done, Prasanjit, in telling you the complexities and the landscape of Manipur, a small valley and a lot of hills all around it. 1/3 of the hills Kuki, 2/3 of the hills, various tribes of Nagas, and in the valley, these three things. What basically disturbs me, and let's begin with something, is the most thing. It will take you, unless you have a Maiti Christian friend, to understand how alone a micro minority can feel, which is a part of a minority. I'm a South Indian Christian in North India, so I have an empathy with that. The Maiti Christian is now facing a threat. What is the American phrase for it? A living and standing threat, very real, from the Maiti, who is a Hindu, a part of whom has been radicalized, which has two very strong, well-armed groups which are much beyond the RSS, although they believe in the RSS brand of identity violence. They've gone much beyond that because the deep state has been mentioned. And this is where, when deep state marries identity politics, the children of this group who can kill, and killing is not metaphorical, physically kill. And the ordinary neighbor, but also because they look like Maitis, because they're Maitis, they speak the language, they live in that area, they face a retribution, if I may use the term, from whichever is the hill tribe going around. Could be a Kuki, could be anybody else. He is or she is facing violence, both for his or her religion and for her is lack of tribeness or tribe, but the physical identity, religion and that identity. The second aspect that worries me is the whole business of scheduling. I mean, Anand would understand 40 years ago, 30 years ago, STs were very well known. We had a lot of Oraos and a lot of others from Jharkhand, from Chhattisgarh, from Madhya Pradesh, and we had a lot of Northeasterners in the IAS and the civil services, in the universities who came on the reservations. And then a certain Rajasthani tribe was notified. It was supposed to be a lower Rajput tribe, but they managed, because of the political strength, to get themselves declared as a scheduled tribe. And over a period of time, because of politics, because a lot of other things, and I don't want to go onto it here, but I have the data collected by IS officers. Over a period of 25 years, the proportion of this particular subgroup in the covenanted services on reservation has been so much that the traditional groups which are using this facility and had good jobs, good education and all that, has now suddenly gone. You will not find a Orao or a Naga or Arunachali in class 1 at the sector level anymore. And this is where the problem comes in. The RSS and the BJP and Mr. Modi's government, which means not just the parties, but the governance system, which includes judiciary, which will explain to you why a single judge of a high court dares rule on something which is so basically constitutionally illegal that even a non-lawyer like me understands it fully, what is not in my competence and what is in my competence. How are these things then becoming possible? In Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, parts of Bengal, and in the tri-junction of Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh, which is the Bhil area, in both these, Chota Nagpur, Northeast, etc. The RSS and the BJP are saying tribals who now espouse Christianity should not enjoy ST status. It's a major thing. It means almost Christians, a very large chunk of us comes from the tribal areas. Christianity has been in Chota Nagpur for 200 years and in the Northeast for 100 years. In the Northeast, Hinduism has been there for 200 plus years. And in the Chota Nagpur region, by one stroke of the census commissioner, all tribes were deemed to be Hindus. So understanding this, that in Manipur, you want tribal status for a non-tribe, and in the rest of India, you want those tribals who are Christians or Muslims. There are very few Muslims, but even Muslims. Those tribals who are Christians lose their tribal status. Now, tribalism or any other thing is tied, it's not just ethnicity, it's tied to the land, it's tied to culture, it goes very deep, which it goes for everyone. But for indigenous people of that vintage, it goes very deep. So here you are playing with fire, using the same ingredients to create two different explosions in two different parts. The third part, which worries me as a now practicing Christian, but I'm a marginal Christian. I go to church twice a year. But I am a Christian. If somebody wants to kill me, they'll kill me because I'm a Christian, not because I'm dark or I'm tall or old or whatever. As a Christian, what worries me is the lack of empathy within the community. For the first time, it has happened that Manipur is on fire. All the churches, by definition, which have been destroyed, irrespective of their ownership, are Christian churches. Nobody is saying a temple has been destroyed or a mosque has been burned. But the empathy factor, which was there when Kandamar took place, please understand this. This is the third biggest incident in Christian history in India of mass violence. The first was when in Mysore, Tipu Sultan took the Kannadigas or the Konkanis of the seacoast area and marched them to his capital. And out of the 80,000 that he took, only 20,000 survived. That was number one. The second was Kandamal in Orissa in 2007 and 2008, where 400 churches were burnt, 6,500 houses were burnt, 65 to 70,000 people were in the forest. An entire generation of girls who are in class 10 or class 12, the tertiary level, will never study again because during in their classes, they were in the forest and they could never go back to school or college. You can understand the depth of that. And the Supreme Court, because I was one of the plaintiffs, the Supreme Court says, and government says, we will not rebuild religious places which have been demolished in a riot. Churches demolished by RSS gangs are still, they were built by us, but the government refused to give any money. The charity money that they give for ex gratia, for the victims of the violence, was a pittance, 2,000 by the state government. And then we came to Dr. Manmohan Singh and got some more money. Then we went to the Supreme Court and got another pittance. So even this is something that is also quite horrendous, which will come to Manipur in a week's time. That the government of India and state governments have no uniform policy in recompensing, in assisting, in aid to victims of communal violence. It is ex gratia, it's in the whims. You can give 5 lakhs, you can give 20 lakhs, you can give 1 crore, as happened in Delhi during the Northeastern riots. One person got 1 crore of rupees for being killed by a Muslim. The Muslim killed by a Hindu got nothing. Even our policy on relief of this nature needs to be fixed. So I would like to conclude at this stage, and I would like to come back later, is that this is a very complex area where religion, ethnicity, law, the schedules to the constitution, visa, the underground wealth, royalties, everything will come when people start coming back and discussing the whole thing in the larger matrix in which it should be discussed. You cannot just say it's Hindu-Muslim or Hindu-Christian. You cannot just say it is Maiti versus tribals. At one stage, the Nagas were anti-cookies. I was in Manipur, I'm forgetting how many years ago, when the cookies were refugees. They were being shifted from one place to another, and they resisted being put in terrible camps that the government was building in the hills. We were taken to some of those camps, and they were really terrible. So it's a very complex situation, which requires the best brains that government and society can offer so that something concrete can come. Just inter-community discussions or community and government discussions alone don't really come to a discussion. Nagaland, all of us have been involved at some stage or other. It's going on and on and on, and will go on for I don't know how. The political will must be found, and communities must find the strength from their people who will authorize some people to discuss, negotiate, and not renege on that. Otherwise, the tinderbox that the Northeast was for want of development, for poverty, for the lack of jobs there, for the non-lack of corruption there, all of that, and this comes on top of that, it does not bode good for the short-term future, certainly, and even for the long-term future. I thank you for this opportunity. This is the first major discussion on Manipur by anybody, including the church. And with that, as the stopping point, I stop.
Thank you so much, John Dayal, for giving a sense of understanding and also hope of realization of this problem. Thank you so much. Now I request Professor Ajailiu Niumai to share her point of view on this very crisis.
Thank you. First of all, I'm extremely grateful to my esteemed teacher, Professor Anand Kumar, and also Randhir, Dr. Randhir, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts on this crisis, making sense of Manipur. And after hearing from Professor Biswas and John Dayal, I feel that they have mentioned many critical issues. And what I'm going to talk about here is, basically an enabling narrative and not a blame game. So I want to make it clear right from the beginning. One of the questions that have been coming to my mind is that how do we talk of peace and harmony when violence is still going on in Manipur, although it has subsided incredibly. And but then we see thousands of people are still suffering from their traumatic experiences and internal injury, and hundreds of affected people from both the Meitei as well as the Kuki communities are still in relief camps. There is a trust deficit among the Kuki tribe. And as both the speakers mentioned, the conflict between the Meitei and the Kuki tribe broke out on 3rd of May in Manipur after a protest march, which Professor Prasanjit has clearly mentioned, which was organized by the All Tribal Students Union Manipur against the Manipur High Court's order on 27 of March 2023, directing the state government to submit a recommendation for the inclusion of Meiteis in the ST list within 4 weeks, although the final decision lies with the center, and the Supreme Court has also given an order that the state Manipur High Court cannot have a say in this matter. So the conflict between these two communities has its roots in the historical tension, and which dates back to the pre-colonial period. The Meiteis are the dominant ethnic group in Manipur, which Professor Biswas has clearly mentioned, comprising of around 53%, whereas the Kuki tribe account for 16% of the total population. John Dayal have also mentioned about the bifurcation of percentages with the other tribes like the Naga tribe and so on and so forth. And I would like to assert that this conflict is not a very simple Hindu and Christian communal conflict, but it is brewing for the past many years with a long disenchantment. I would also like to draw your attention here that people look up to the Meiteis as a community with 2,500 years old civilization and culture. But the Meiteis feel that they are left behind from having good jobs, access to land in the hills of Manipur and the like, because tribes are protected by Article 371A. The Meiteis are also categorized into general category, the other backward castes, OBC, and then the scheduled castes residing in the valley. And they occupy around 10% of land in Manipur, whereas the tribal people reside in the hills, owning around 90% of land. Now, another point of tension is that the tribes in Manipur can buy land in the valley, but the Meitei people cannot buy land in the hills as it's protected by Article 371C. So basically, the Meitei people feel that they should also have access to land in the hills. And another point that I want to draw your attention is how the Meitei people hold political power. Because out of 60 seats, 40 seats are, for the Manipur Meitei people, and 20 seats in the state legislative assembly for the tribal people. So the Meitei hold political power. And some Kuki tribes have institutional position of power in bureaucracy and walk in the corridor of power. And some Meitei ruling political class seems to have less educational qualification, and hence the bureaucracy mostly occupied by the Kuki tribe seems to have an upper hand. Hence, there is a tension between the Meitei ruling political class and the Kuki tribal bureaucracy. And both the communities form their armed groups to protect their interests. Now, in the recent few years, some forest land in the hills have been declared as government reserve forests. Hence, the tribals who depend on the forests as their means of livelihood felt threatened by this new policy of exclusion. And the local media also reported just before this outbreak of conflict on 3rd of May, the local media reported that 141 guns and more than 7,000 ammunitions were taken by the public from the police station and training center prior to the outbreak, and these guns are not returned to the government except around 240 or so guns till today. Now, on the following day, that is on 4th May, the Manipur government issued a shoot at sight order in extreme cases and call military reinforcement to quell the violence that opened a new fault line. So the current communal conflict resulted in widespread damage of thousands of properties, houses, looting of material goods. We heard of how refrigerators, sofas, beds are being looted before the houses were burned down. 221 churches burned till yesterday's record, 60 people killed, which may be double, if unofficial dead people are also counted. Around 23,000 people displaced, uncountable number of vehicles burned, and hundreds of people still living in relief camps. Internet connection is cut off and 9 districts were imposed with curfew, although curfews have been relaxed for a few hours since the past few days for the community, local public to buy goods and have access to pharmacy and so on and so forth, or fuel. Now, the demand for scheduled tribe by Meitei people, who are the majoritarian political class, fell left behind in accessing to better jobs and forest land, particularly in the hills, as I mentioned earlier, and Prof. Biswas have also mentioned about that. But there is a rise of radical right-wing Meitei organizations, and they focus on neo-Meitei nationality that promote Sanamahi religion and not Vaishnavite Hinduism. And the rise of neo-Meitei Sanamahi religious identity confronted the conflict of interests of the tribal Christian identity. And each of these groups have demands. And the state has played identity politics to manage all these groups. Now, in the eventuality of the Naga tribes and the Kuki tribe political arrangement, the Meitei people felt the need to have the scheduled tribe status. And so it's almost like a preemptive measure. Another cause of tension is the poppy plantation by tribal people in the hills of Manipur. The poor tribal farmers can't afford to invest capital worth starting from 1.2 lakhs to 3-4 lakhs, and above in a lucrative poppy plantation to make cocaine, drugs. And it is alleged that the bourgeois class from the valley often invest to make the surplus value from the poppy plantation and also from timber business, but the poor tribal farmers were blamed. Now, these existing problems intersecting caste, intersecting tribe, religion, or class, and the like were facilitated by the political class. And hence, the solution to the problem needs to be solved through political settlement. Kuki's demand for the autonomous district council and separate administrative district is going to create a problem, since there is several interlocking processes and internal problems within the state. There is also a possibility that the Naga tribes may also ask for the same demand to fulfill their aspiration for Greater Nagaland or Nagalim. So metaphorically, the current situation in Manipur is like a pressure cooker, which is about to blow its whistle. The epistemic violence is imposed by both the communities, and the conflict is full-blown And it's extremely difficult to talk about peaceful coexistence of many ethnic communities within this at this juncture. Now, I want to talk about how the idea of India is grounded in the principle of social justice, inclusivity, diversity, and it's rooted in Enlightenment philosophy. However, the idea of India has failed again in Manipur because Armed Forces Special Powers Act is still in the state, although revoked in some parts only. And violence against the Kukis has been justified by the infiltration of the Kukis from the neighboring countries, particularly Myanmar and Bangladesh. And also the issue of land grabbing, drug smuggling, poppy plantation, and the like. So the infiltration of Kukis from neighboring countries is also obviously a national security problem. But the state has proven to be ineffective to protect its international borders. I do agree with what John Dayal says that there is a lack of empathy when the Kuki people from the neighboring come to Mizoram or to Churachandpur, their own kindred group, have some kind of empathy towards them. But then the majority communities, where are the empathy from them is a question. But at the same time, as I said, it is also about national security problem. If the state is seriously concerned about the infiltration from the neighboring countries, the international borders must have been sealed a long time ago. Human trafficking, drug trafficking, or gun smuggling have been going on for several years in Manipur. It's the failure of the state to identify people without borders and attempt to deport them. So this is the immediate cause or trigger for violence. Let me come to the conclusion part of my talk. At the moment, I feel it is for the government to reach out to the victims and offer them not just packages, but security, permanent peace to both the parties. Secondly, the affected victims and civil organizations, civil society organizations, CSOs, suffer from trust deficit. And therefore, the state must build the trust factor to be restored. And all the community representatives have to negotiate for amicable solution. The state has to assuage the Kukis and assure them of complete security. Now, the challenge for the state is that Kukis may not come forward for a peace talk unless they get their demands. 10 MLAs have planned to resign. 7 of them are BJP MLAs. Hence, there is a tough task ahead for the state. Lastly, the Kuki and the Meitei global diaspora must attempt to intervene to bring about lasting peace, just like the mainstream Indian diaspora voice concern and intervene in India to achieve peace whenever India is in crisis. Peace cannot be achieved by coercion, but it can only be achieved by understanding and negotiation between the parties. The future is an open moment, and it depends on our collective effort to learn from our mistakes and usher in a new era. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very insightful, very thought-provoking. Now I invite respected participant to raise questions or may participate in. Yes.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello.
you are
Yes.
audible, Ramesh.
Okay. I think we have already know that large-scale violence has since across the states of Manipur, and still firing is continuing. But we need to understand how this class has started. And on 3rd May of this, 2023, the class was started by the militant group of the Kuki. It is a fact. We need to accept the fact. So, hello.
Yes,
Yeah, armed group armed group who participated in the so-called solidarity march attacked the villages. I mean, Faudaka Ikai, Probung, Kangbai, which is near to my village. I belong to the Kumbi, and these 3 villages belong to the Kumbi Assembly constituency. So the issue is not about between the tribal and non-tribal. The issue is not about the Christian Kuki and Hindu Maiti. There is a larger issue. The main issue is about the influx of the immigrant migrations from the Myanmar. So if they may have the right to give objection to the inclusion of the Maiti in the scheduled tribe, right? And they may have some disadvantage in the development in their in hill state, fine. But for objecting against the demand of the Maiti inclusion in the scheduled tribe, so, I mean, how can we justify attacking a particular community which are militant? So it is evident that the armed militants were seen in the rally. So how can that rally can be considered as a peaceful rally? And that rally was organized only in the Kuki-dominated area, Chursanpur, I think, Chursanpur, Kangpukpi, and Tengnopol. There was no rally in the Naga-dominated hill area. So if they are native, if they have a sense of love towards the state of Manipur, why they have objection when the government is trying to find out the unauthorized villages? The number of the increases of the villages in Manipur is in a very pathetic situation. According to the government gazettes, in 1969, the number of the villages in Chusambur district was 216, but now it has increased to 544 in 2021. And the number of the villages in Kangpukpi, it was 179. Now it has increased to 534. And in Tenopol, 68 to 173. Even in Sandel, 77 to 273. But in the Naga-dominated area, in the Maiti-dominated area, the number of the villages is not increasing. So it shows that there is a unnatural increase of the illegal migrants from the Myanmar. This is the main issue. And it has been shown that, on 11 of this month, 11 of May, they put a boat in the village Torbung, welcome to Greater Mizoram. The next day, 10 Kuki MLA, they have made a press conference. They are saying that we can't live in Manipur. Because the attack was started by the Kuki who are participating in the rally. Then they have started burning down the houses. Even one of my mighty friend who is a Christian, they have attacked. It is not a fight between the Hindu Maiti and the Christian Kuki. So we need to accept the fact. We need to accept the truth of how it has, it has started. So without accepting the fact, then I think there won't be any a possibility of bringing a peace in the state. So this is not about only scheduled tribe, inclusion of the Maiti in the scheduled tribe. There is some larger issue about the illegal migration. And these are the people who are involved in the drug trafficking. I can say with courage. And they have this Kuki group, they have they have conflict with many tribes. They have a conflict with Kuki and Mar. They have a conflict with Kuki and Naga. They have a conflict with Kuki and Paite. They have a conflict with Kuki and Karbi. They have a issue with Kuki and Dimasa, whom they didn't fight.
Yes, I
hope you understand what I'm trying to highlight.
Yes, Ramesh.
Yeah.
Yes,
So if there is no, if they are claiming that there is no illegal immigrations in the Koki-dominated area from the Myanmar, if there is no illegal immigration, then we should have NRC. When we started taking the initiative of having NRC, then they will started opposing this. So it is all about opportunism. If there is no illegal immigrants from the Myanmar, they should support that we should have NRC. But they will oppose NRC. Why?
yes, Ramesh, we have a limited of time. So
okay, thank you. This is what I just want
we
to
have taken your
yeah.
concern. Yes. Yes, Professor Biswajit Ghosh.
Thank you. I thought I should join this to learn. But so far from the findings of the research on ethnicity and identity formation for the last 2 decades, I think many of the findings that I have seen in Tripura, in many other parts of Northeast, are to be seen again in Manipur. If you look into the history of ethnicity across India, it is the state and bureaucracy and now the judiciary which ethnicizes the issue. The issue of immigration that has been brought forward by a friend of mine. It's a law and order issue, and the state, just keeps silence, maintains silence, and allows the situation to grow that could be utilized politically for other kind of benefit. That was seen in Punjab also. Okay, the way Akalis were being, framed. So, point is, one has to look into the role of state. Then one also has to look into the role of new liberal economies, which Professor Ajailiu was basically talking about unemployment, issue of land, scarcity of jobs. Okay, they feel they are being deprived. With the growth of middle classes among all segments of population, these are the issues which come in. And when the state fails to address these issues, they rather divert their attention and divert people's attention to some other issues, including the ethnic issue. So one has to see beyond the paradigm of what is happening. And my friend who just questioned now is right in saying that yes, it's to be seen historically, and historically during the last few years, because many of my friends are from Manipur, and many of them are Vaishnavites, many of them are very peace-loving people. I have been to Manipur. I have never seen that Manipuris fight for this an issue, but this has become an issue because politics is looming across culture. This was not the culture of many of the dominant, tribal or non-tribal groups in Manipur. They're very peace-loving people in Manipur. So if this can happen, in fact, when the incidents, I heard this incident, I was shocked. I didn't expect this. If it happens in Nagaland, if it happens in Tripura, fine. But in Manipur, I didn't expect this. With the dominant Moitis being radicalized and sort of, going beyond the Vaishnavites ideology of thing. Vaishnavite ideology is sort of grounded level and recognizes everything. It's sort of liberal ideology. It recognizes all religious practices. Everybody, there is God in all human beings. That kind of ideology they preach. So going beyond that, the kind of radicalization, polarizing people in the name of culture, in the name of religion, is something happening, and probably this is the greatest danger that India is facing. And I agree with Zai that this is not India that I have seen. This is not India that I was born. This is something different India, and all these basically have been out of sort of political game of controlling power, keeping power in power, and that is happening also in Tripura. That is happening in all northwestern states and everywhere where the people are being divided and ruled. This strategy of British strategy is being applied very carefully, and the media, including I feel sorry that even the judiciary takes part in. That's what my impression is. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Biswajit. We have 2 raised hands. So yes, Dr. Sabir Ahmed, please unmute and ask your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much. The topic which was selected today is really, which is of current importance. And I should congratulate the institution for organizing such a seminar and share the ideas globally. So far as the Manipur issues are concerned, I should say it's not issue, it's a crisis in terms of ethnic violence and ethnic cleansing. I would like to ask the panelists, is it a signal that center has somewhere failed to accommodate diversity and heterogeneous spirit of India, which otherwise was a beautiful tendency, a beautiful character of Indian society for we are known globally. And this diversity and heterogeneity makes the civilization rich. The second point is it, don't you think that this is the responsibility of the public intellectuals to come up with the real solutions so that minorities and ethnic groups with different identities can be addressed and their grievances can be resolved and redressed while keeping them, their representatives, their leaders on the table. This is what I want to ask, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I request respected speakers to please note down this question or queries. Yes, Umesh Sarojji.
Good evening to all, and first of all, congratulations to all for giving thought-provoking ideas and their point of views over this platform. My question is only a single liner. As a communal harmony, how constitutional values have been safeguarded over there or in entire India? What is the take of the citizens and the governance part? Only that. Thank you so much.
Yes, Ted Mosby. Ted Mosby.
Randhir ji, Sri Anil Nauriya also wanted to ask some
Okay.
question and say something. Sri Anil Nauriya.
I had one or two points. Firstly, I think one problem that arises in discussing such issues. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, go ahead, please go ahead.
One problem that arises in discussing such issues is that we tend to speak in terms of collectivities. That so-and-so did this and so-and-so started and so-and-so has this and so-and-so asked for this and that. Now, what I would like to say is that there are two aspects to the question. One is the immediate issue of violence and displacement, killing and displacement. Now, and the other is the long-term socio-economic question. Now, so far as the immediate issue of killing and displacement and so on is concerned, I want to know whether there has been any attempt to set up peace committees in Manipur. And if so, why not? And which are the groups that can do this? So that's number one. The other point is that so far as the other issues are concerned, connected with these peace committees, I want to say that if, say, 61 people have been killed, we need to document that, and we need to know why for each killing, how it occurred. Instead of giving collective answers that this community did that and that community did that, we need to treat the individual as the unit and ask for each individual what happened in his or her case and how they got killed. Because apart from the ethnic identities which they have, they are individual human beings, and each human life should be treated as a unit, as an independent unit, and we would like to have a peace committee which goes into these issues also. So it's a peace come fact-finding committee that should really look into this. Then the second question is about displacement. This also, what kind of relief is being given, what kind of relief, immediate relief can emerge. All these questions need looking into by some independent peace and fact-finding committee. Then the third question is about the long-term socio-economic issues which have formed the backdrop of this crisis. That has to be looked at by a committee of, by a study group of academics, local journalists, local civil society people who should look into it and in a time-bound manner educate us on this, say within 2 or 3 months, so that we can then start taking up these issues on a wider plane in the country as a whole. So this is roughly what I had to say. And, we should avoid collective, at the moment, collective attribution of blame or any collective commentary related to the immediate aspect, that is the killing and the displacement. Here, we should treat every individual as a separate unit for inquiry. So this is roughly what I have to say.
Thank you. I request respected participant to please brief. Yes, Advocate Sandeep P. Jyotika ji.
धन्यवाद सर, थैंक यू। सबसे पहले आनंद कुमार जी को मैं प्रणाम करता हूं। तो मेरा क्वेश्चन सिर्फ 2 है। जो नॉर्थ हमारी बॉर्डर है इंडिया की, वहाँ ज्यादातर बुद्धिस्ट स्टेट है पूरे हमारे कंट्री के वो बॉर्डर पे। तो क्या हम हमारी ये मूवमेंट में जो रेस्ट ऑफ द बुद्धिस्ट कंट्रीज जो है उसकी हेल्प ले सकते हैं, और हमारी ये मूवमेंट में क्या उसकी इफेक्ट क्या आएगी? मेरा पहला क्वेश्चन है। और दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि जो एसटी कम्युनिटी और दूसरा जो मणिपुर मेघालय में जो बुद्धिस्ट कल्चर सबसे ज्यादा है, तो इंडिया में द ओल्डेस्ट इंस्टीट्यूट बुद्धिस्ट इंस्टीट्यूट जो महाबोधि सोसाइटी ऑफ इंडिया कोलकाता, जो पूरे वर्ल्ड की एक बहुत बड़ी संस्था है बुद्धिस्ट, जिसमें दुनिया के सभी बुद्धिस्ट कंट्री के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव इसमें मेंबर है, लाइफ मेंबर है। तो क्या हम उनकी हेल्प ले सकते हैं? और तीसरा, द बुद्धिस्ट सोसाइटी ऑफ इंडिया जो महाराष्ट्र स्थित है और पूरे देश में और दुनिया में उसकी ब्रांचेस है, तो क्या उन लोगों की हेल्प लेके हम इसमें कुछ मूवमेंट में हेल्पफुल हो सकते हैं? ये हमारे मूवमेंट में बेनिफिट है या नहीं है? प्लीज उसके बारे में थोड़ा जानना चाहता हूँ। थैंक यू वेरी मच, वेरी काइंड ऑफ
जी, राजीव कुमार जी।
धन्यवाद, नमस्कार सर। जय भीम, जय जगत। मेरा सवाल है कि आज जिस तरीके से नफरत का दौर है और हर तरफ हिंसा है, तो इस दौर में हम एक गांधीवादी, अम्बेडकरवादी के रूप में किस तरीके से चलें? मेरा सवाल बस स्पष्ट ये है कि मैं दलितों पर काम कर रहा हूँ बिहार में, और कंटिन्यूअसली रूलिंग पार्टी के लोगों के द्वारा धमकियां दी जाती है। तो इस तरीके के माहौल में हम कैसे अपने आप को रखें? मैं सर से गांधीवादी विचार जानना चाहूंगा कि मैं अपने आप को कैसे सृजित करूं इस विषय पर। माफी के साथ यह सवाल मेरा आपसे।
बहुत धन्यवाद। के आयोग की please unmute and ask your questions.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and to all the organizers, my appreciations. I would like to make a brief intervention here. Prior to initially, Romesh was speaking about the situation in Manipur. There are certain facts that need to be put straight here, that the peace rally was organized by ATSAM, Old Tribal Student Union Manipur, in all the district headquarters of hill areas of Manipur. It's not only the Kukis that organized the event. That should be made clear. And secondly, in Churachandpur, the peace rally concluded peacefully, but while the event was going on, a vehicle coming from the valley side came and burned the Anglo-Kuki War, which is a centenary celebration, a war memorial built in Churachandpur district, that provoked the conflict. And that has to be
fault. It is a fault.
Yeah. It is not. Let me complete it, okay? That the fact is that triggered the conflicts that ensued. And one thing that needs to be put on record is also that prior to the day of the public rally, a counter blockade was already done on the night before the day of the public rally. On that night, ethnic profiling was done. The Kukis were not allowed to move ahead to the hill areas. So the moment the counter blockade was done, the state should have taken cognizance of the sensitivity of the issue, and no public curfew was announced. I think the role of the state should be critically scrutinized here, in the sense that in the valley, the last 2-3 years, it has been pretty clear that certain right-wing majoritarian nationalism organizations have been nurtured, roaming around the cities in uniforms and so on, and they have proximity to the powers that be. I think this should also be put straightforward. And in the ensuing conflicts, not just the churches that belong to the cookies are burned, and even the churches that belong to the Métis community, Métis Christians, are also burned. We don't want to, it's too sensitive to make things very clear here, but there is much scope to suspect certain hands that are well versed with inciting conflicts along religious fault lines. And looking at the responses of the cookies in their dominated areas, it is largely ethnic, because the temples, the Hindu temples, are largely standing safely in Churchandpur and other areas where there are a large number of Hindu business community in that part. So there is certain underhand involved in this. And thirdly, Romesh has mentioned about immigration. I think this issue is completely exaggerated. If you look at the academic, if you look at the demographic profile of the Chin state, where the cookies are said to be living there, the Chin state is a territory bigger than Manipur, and it has a population less than 5 lakhs. And the maximum number of their population is living close to the Rakhine state and Mizoram border side. And Manipur, Indo-Myanmar Manipur border is hardly settled by the Kuki-Chin community that number less than 30,000. So the immigration to Manipur is just only in less than 5,000. It's not in terms of lakhs. So the so-called wave of immigration becoming an issue in inciting communal conflict and so on, this is, I think we should nip in the bud this kind of arguments, in the sense that it doesn't have any substantive point on that. It is purely the nurturing of hatred for the last 3-4 years, which has come out in the open. And even the powers that be in their Facebook posts, they have already put up clearly in the Facebook, calling certain communities, individuals belonging to a particular community as immigrants, refugees, and so on. It is on record. We should not run away from the fact, which means that the last 2-3 years, there has been a well crafted narrative that demonizes or secularizes a particular community. And this conflict is an outcome of that, that narrative that has been built around. So on that note, I conclude. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, K. Hockey. And now I request respected speakers.
Can I make a small clarification?
Yes, Ramesh, we'll invite you after speaker's intervention.
All right. Okay.
Yes, maybe we can invite with Dr. John there.
I do not, yeah, I have unmuted myself. I do not want to enter into bilateral arguments with anybody. In one sense, I agree with almost everybody. But in my paper, I have highlighted 2 points. I have highlighted the fact that elsewhere in the country, the ruling group, the BJP, is asking for de-estification of a religious group. In Manipur, it is asking for the estification, if we can coin a word, of a religious group. So this contradiction leads one to suspect that there's a larger game plan to pit brother against brother, you can say, and to see what all they can do, because as everybody has pointed out, poor Manipur is a state where the army can do what they wish to. And often they have done so. I mean, the world will never forget the Naga, the mothers of Manipur, stark naked in their holy place to protest army atrocities. Those are images that can never be forgotten and are in fact a saving counterpoint to today's images. On many issues, APSA itself, the struggle was not just by the Metis. APSA impacts everybody, and the struggle was almost a joint struggle, though ultimately the poor girl got the short end of the stick. I would say that larger issues of Nagaland, of Manipur, employment, infrastructure, are issues around which we can build a narrative for not only a unified people struggle, but also through that for peace. If we do a piecemeal study and say, I think Hauke gave absolute, I mean, I agree with him 100%, having seen the cooking thing over the last 30 years. I entirely agree with him. What this whole argument about large-scale settlement is an argument we know, we're very familiar with from all parts of India, particularly the states adjoining Bangladesh. Some of it is fiction, some of it is fact, some of it is the fictionalization of a small fact, making a mountain of a molehill. I think we should, let the government know that some of these game plans have been exposed and that some of them from the deep state or from the state agencies must withdraw their hand. The return of the people is important. What relief packages are given? I cited Kandamal going up to the Supreme Court, where I was also a plaintiff, and finding out how the judiciary also is as whimsical as anybody else. What money do we give them to rebuild their lives? The people have been, if you have seen the videos, which you have seen, if I've seen them, you have seen them too, how refugees are living, in what conditions they're living. And I said, I began and ended by saying, I am deeply disturbed at the lack of empathy in the country on things that happen to people, not to Christians, not to Hindus, not to tribals, not to non-tribals, but a concern for another concern. You're very right. Every case is an individual case. Bilkis is an individual case, surely. And as an individual, as a member of a community, as a member of a gender, she has been denied justice. So I think a larger issue of empathy and making empathy a part of peace processes, a part of state interventions, a part of dialogues is important. But ultimately, at some stage, everybody has to come to the negotiating table and everybody has to be taught the limits of their powers, including courts and governments.
Thank you. Yes, Professor Ajailiu.
I would like to respond to the question on the responsibility of public intellectuals. I would assert that, the public intellectuals have definitely a great responsibility to use their expertise and also to use their knowledge to help address this crisis that is going on in Manipur. And I think one of the main primary responsibility of public intellectuals is definitely to engage in the critical analysis and also debate about the root causes of this communal crisis and kind of give a way forward, how we can evolve to, have a better life and learn from the mistake that has happened. And regarding the relief, which John Dayal also just mentioned, I would like to mention here that the Chief Minister has offered relief packages, 5 lakhs for those who have been killed, and houses to be built, 5 lakhs package for those houses who have been destroyed completely, and I think 2.5 lakhs, if I'm not mistaken, for those who passed away, to the families, and then 25,000 rupees for those who are injured, mildly injured or something like that. So these are the packages, but there are 2 groups of people who raise voices regarding these relief packages. One group says, very good, this is one step towards relief. But the other group says, when thousands of houses have been burned down, what crores? You're offering only 5 lakhs. And then when lives have been lost, you cannot buy back the lives lost. So there are two voices that has come. That's why I mentioned in my talk very clearly, that one has to go beyond relief packages. I think I made it very blunt in my talk, that one have to talk about permanent peace to both the parties, not just packages alone. Packages are also important, but more than that is a deeper, critical insight that has to go into it to bring about a permanent solution to both the parties. And regarding the peace committee form or not, I heard yesterday from people who are in Imphal, Manipur, that there are religious leaders who have come forward. And they are now negotiating of forming peace. And I also heard another thing is that this religious leaders alone cannot form the committee, obviously. So, I mean, there are a lot of actors that needs to be involved, and it is not so easy because the traumatic experiences and the internal injury are so fresh, and it's going to be in their mind for a long period of time. So, they cannot just talk of peace. That's why I just said that, talking of peace is important, but how do we talk of peace when the injury is so fresh? When people are still feeling traumatic. Look at the minds of young girls and boys. Look at the minds of people whose spouses or parents or whose children have been killed right in front of their eyes. And so this is a kind of thing that I think we need to think over and over. And who really are those people, I mean, who will have to take the initiative in the peace talk? I mean, they are the CSO, the church leaders, religious leaders are very important. And at the same time, youth leaders also have to come forward. Women cannot be left behind. Even women's group have to come, women's agencies, and also the local, the grassroots local people, the public also has to be involved. And as a person who worked on diaspora for many years, especially on Manipuri diaspora and Naga diaspora, I just feel that it is important for the diaspora, global Manipuri and the Naga diaspora community, Kuki diaspora community to also involve in this peace talks. And another thing that I want to talk about is the long-term socio-economic development issue. I feel that, at the moment we can't think of talking of economic development because this crisis has taken back 30 years, 30 years backward, not forward. So how do we talk of economic development right now when it is so deeply embedded with pain, suffering, and hatred? We need to build on, how to overcome this problem first before talking of economic development. The state's economy has collapsed. Just before this happened, I mean, the economy was thriving. In fact, Manipur became one of the most vibrant state in the Northeast, and a lot of tourists have started coming in, but now who wants to visit Manipur? right? So I feel that it's too early to talk of economic development. And lastly, regarding the reservation point, some of you have asked if the issue is not about inclusion of Meitei in ST list, there is larger hidden agenda behind the attack. This is by Romesh on Meitei community by the Kuki Armed Group. Prior to the mass rally, they have started burning down government forest offices. I have clearly mentioned, Romesh, that in my talk, you know, I'm talking of the enabling narrative. And, you know, I'm not talking about a blame game. So I made my point very clear here. And regarding the reservation, the Supreme Court ruled in 1992 that a reservation could not exceed 50%. Anything above which it judges would violate equal access as guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. So if everybody in Manipur comes under ST, you know, there's also a question of who gets what. So, I mean, there are a lot of deep, insightful debates that needs to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Professor Prasanjit Biswas. I think he had just left. So we have the request for a final word from our respected chair, Professor Anand.
Thank you, Randhir and the scholars who made such meaningful presentation. Our purpose today was to engage in making sense of the Manipur crisis. And as it happened, we found that there was an institutional dimension because there was a gap or difference in the perception of High Court and Supreme Court. And that gap was utilized by political elite to cultivate a sense of injustice or to promote a sense of competition. It is also very interesting that the Kuki MLAs belong to BJP, which is in command of the central government. We also see, with the help of these scholars, that there was an ethnic triangle of Meiteis, Kukis, and in some way Nagas. There was also the problem of insider and outsider, as well as approachability and accessibility of natural resources for the Meiteis in the hills and for the Kukis and Nagas in the plains. We do see that these scholars have asked us to look at three vital processes for all of us. One is representation, the other is participation, and third is integration. Representation has been assured for many communities with the help of the idea of reservation. And there is a limit to representation through reservation. We have found that reservation is useful for the upper layer of any community, which is more educated, more urbanized, more resourceful, with some kind of social and cultural capital. So it is a good process of elite formation, but not a good process for providing justice to all. Justice to all will require institutional openings like education for all, employment to all, housing for all, water for all, and many other such universal support systems from the welfare state and others. I was very alerted by the point made by one of our legal minds today, Sri Anil Nauriya, that try to separate the individuals from collective identities. Violence was done by a group of people. These people had certain identity. They belonged to a particular age group, educational group, organizational identity, but to lump them together as representative of one or the other group, whether Kukis or Meiteis or Nagas, will be extremely dangerous. But media does it, political class does it, public intellectuals are found to engage in it, and of course the human rights organizations, civil liberties organizations, and political parties. This judiciousness is the beginning of conflict resolution. It is the beginning of mapping the problem. Of course, we are talking about a state which has been under Armed Forces Special Power Act for decades. So you see that it was not only failure of normal system of representation and conflict resolution like assembly, parliament, media, judiciary, but even the armed forces are found to be wanting. You have Armed Forces Special Power Act in operation. What more can be done to strengthen the hands of the state? Friends, I'm very surprised, but also feel satisfied that this discussion is one of the first discussions in this whole country, a country of 1 billion and 400 million people. I thank Society for Communal Harmony, these 3 scholars who came forward. Why there is silence? Because these are difficult questions, questions of failure, questions of frustration, questions of relevance of search for going beyond parliamentary politics, beyond judicial relief. And I was very happy to hear from Professor Niumai that depending on only religious leaders is too much to ask for. First, the political class creates a problem, and then you dump the baby in the lap of religious leaders. This is not a religious problem. Religion is only marginally associated with this conflict case. It is a political problem. There is some internal dynamics within the elected people, and the idea that we cannot live together is a very interesting idea, very exciting idea for politics of separatism. And these are times when we are looking at the idea of India with the binary of Hindus and non-Hindus, where this becomes another alarming episode. In North India, we are talking about Hindus and Muslims. Now in Northeast, it has become Meiteis and Kukis, or Christians and Muslims. Such a large number of sites to be vandalized. So I do agree with the 3 scholars that it is a deep disease. Sporadic violence would have created damage to a few houses, a few religious places, but it is a very large number. It's not usual. I hope that these scholars will help us and guide us in going further and taking up this issue further. This is a very shameful episode for all who are concerned about India as a democratic, constitutional, and free country. I thank the scholars, but much more the participants. We started with a group of around 25. We moved up to 55. And even now, after an hour and a half, we have 34 people attending the discussion, 35 people. And they're from different parts of the country, and a few of them are from countries other than India. So let us recognize the responsibility of all of us and relevance of this issue. And we can promise to the sad people of Manipur and concerned people of our country that we will not let this go by default. We'll continue our conversation. After this set of 3 scholars, we will engage some more people to go further. And then Manipur becomes a case for all of us to understand the limits of parliamentary democracy, the problem of non-violent ways of conflict resolution, and the threat of violence lurking behind every shadow of parliamentary politics. Thank you, Randhir ji, and thank
you. Thank you, and thank you all the viewers who are watching this platform from Facebook page. So there are also some good response. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we look forward for your kind participation in our future dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Randhir. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.